Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Jim. This is Now It's Dark. It's right there. And I just watched a movie called Humane. It's a 2024 film. It is available on Vudu, Apple TV, and Prime for $6.99. And this is labeled as a horror thriller, but I would add in dark comedy to this. And I don't mean comedy in like the cheesy sense of the slapstick kind of comedy, but there's like dark comedy because the first part of the movie is very much a social commentary about the environment and political climate. And thankfully, it wasn't done in a manner in which I felt like I was being um, given a lesson on how to be a human. So, because those movies kind of bother me, actually, where there's an apparent underlying message of save the planet or whatever rights for whatever group. And this touches on it, and it's the word parody um, doesn't mean comedy. So it's parodying, it's a parody of the climate in America. And yeah, so try to figure out what I just said. I don't know what I just said. But this movie, it took me by surprise. It was actually quite good, even though there are a lot of similar things about this movie with other movies, and I'll get to that in a second. Labeled horror thriller, in the wake of an environmental collapse that is forcing humanity to shed 20% of its population, a family dinner erupts into chaos when a father's plan to enlist in the government's new euthanasia program goes horribly awry. This is directed by Caitlin Cronenberg. Uh, it's crazy. I didn't know that going into this, honestly. But I couldn't be more thrilled. This is her directorial debut, Caitlin Cronenberg, and it's fantastic. She did great. Written by Michael Spararga. I'm pretty sure I said that right. And this stars kind of an interesting cast of some recognizable people, too. It's not, well, they may be still considered B-listers, but they're recognizable. In particular, Peter Gallagher plays Charles York. He's the father of all of the rest of the cast, basically. And the rest of the cast is Jay Baruchel plays Jared York. He's a son who is an advocate for the government's euthanasia program. We have Rachel York, who is one of the daughters. We have uh, Peter Gallagher, I already mentioned. We have Noah York, played by Sebastian Chacon, and he was an adopted part of the family. Ashley York is the baby sister, Alana Bale, and Dawn Kim is played by Uni Park, and she is the second wife and stepmother of all of these characters. And Rachel's daughter is played by Serena Goulamgas, and she plays Mia York, and she is a very fun character. And then the surprise character for me, because when I saw him, I recognized that I don't always like him. Uh, I don't always like his acting. Enrico Colatoni plays Bob, and I'll tell you what, that's for me probably the breakout star. He's very deadpan. He's very down to business. He is an agent of the euthanasia program, and the agency is called the Department of Citizen Strategy. And he is one of the euthanasia administrators. So they go to these people's homes who have enlisted and does his work. And then he's got a cast of people alongside him that I'm not really going to go into. Interestingly enough, there's a lot of whenever they show the television, it's always on a news channel, and for a couple of reasons. One, Daddy York is a former television um, it sounded like news broadcaster, host of like news, nighttime news. So we have that. And then also, it's also kind of giving us a bigger picture of outside of this house, what's going on in our country and also the world. Because this environmental impact and this 20% reduction in population strategy is worldwide. All of the countries have committed to reducing their population by 20% by a certain time frame to help with whatever the environmental issues are. And thankfully, again, like I was saying, this isn't the driving thing. Like, this isn't, we get that there's an environmental thing going on, but we really don't even get a lot of insight into what it is, how it happened. And I appreciated that because I didn't want this movie to be balancing between this family dynamic and then also having crammed down my throat environmental impact issues and public awareness stuff, because I don't want that in my horror movies. And so, yeah, Daddy Gallagher. So we get those news reports. And then, so the reason I bring it up is because David Cronenberg is actually the voiceover news person. So the narration of those TV spots is done by uh, by David Cronenberg. So I think that that's fantastic. So Daddy York calls everybody together for a family dinner, which is kind of setting off red flags to the kids because Dad's never been a good dad. He was always consumed with work. We find, when they all get there, we have a small moment of the character development, character building for us as the viewer, the attributes of each of the characters. One is the abrasive dickhead, and then one is like the meek and shy, and of course there's got to be one of them that's an addict or former recovering addict, which I do also typically hate, but they handled it well in this movie too. um, and we got the single mom and just all of this other stuff. But I thought at the time that it was very tropey to do that. But when we get into the movie, it makes sense for us to know these things about these characters, because when Dad reveals during dinner to the family that he and his wife have enlisted in the euthanasia program, it creates like this very volatile situation where the kids are just confused. The one son who's a part of the government program is trying to convince his dad, like, you don't need to do this, because if families don't, if we get to where we don't meet our volunteer quota and the government has to select families, they will only take one person per family, and then the rest of us would be safe. So he's basically saying, Dad, don't enlist, don't do this, because there's a good chance that the addict is going to be the one that gets selected. And so that becomes like his theme, is like, well, this guy wasted his whole life being an addict, so let's let him be the one that gets the euthanasia situation enlistment, and then it saves everybody else who's been productive all their lives. And so that shows a lot about his character. What the family doesn't realize until there's a knock on the door, that the dinner wasn't to announce that they were going to enlist, but that they had already done it. And it was going to happen right then. And he called the family together because I guess this was what you do in these situations, is you give your family notice. I volunteered, everybody show up, give your last goodbyes, and be there with me when I go off into La La Land. Because it's done just like a humane, peaceful passing where it's just a drip and you fall asleep and you just don't wake up. It sounds actually pretty wonderful, not going to lie. And yeah, so then now the tension between the family members gets even more crazy. And so this is when we meet Bob. Bob is there to facilitate the procedure, and he's very quirky. Um, it's an odd position to be in, I suppose. It does look, though, on some level, he does enjoy this job. And then we find out that Dawn is missing. So Bob is there to collect 2 bodies because that's what the contract is for. And Dad is like, well, I signed up to do this with my wife. If she's not here, can we reschedule? Bob's like, nope, you got to go. It's your time. You set this appointment up, not us. You called us. You volunteered. And so they have a private moment together. Dad goes through with it. And then Bob introduces to the rest of them that he won't be leaving. They have 3 hours before their next appointment. They need to figure out who's going to also volunteer. And then we get balls to the walls craziness. Mia, the daughter of whatever her name was, darn it, Rachel, goes with Bob to their big truck outside, the camper. They're going to play cards and just hang out until the family decides. Then it becomes very much like a movie like You're Next or Ready or Not, where we have all sorts of things going on between the family, all these different plots. People are trying to pick sides. They're trying to figure out who's going to be the one to volunteer. And it doesn't get resolved well. And I feel like I can't say anything more because this is where the movie really takes a hold. And it's just very, very well done. Some really neat things happen. Uh, they also do my favorite thing of explaining that the cell phones won't work. Apparently, the Department of Citizen Strategy, when they go to the residence of these volunteers, they scramble the phone signals. So that took care of the current state of cell phone. Why can't they just call for help? Um, so that and that does actually play into this movie very much at one point. So I really enjoyed this. I want to look at my notes real quick. You got to stay right through till the end. There are definitely some blood moments and some what the heck tense moments that I wasn't expecting. I really thought maybe this was going to lean a lot more to the thriller side of the horror, but there's definitely the touches of the horror that are just enough for this. And yeah, I think if you liked the movie Ready or Not or You're Next or even Get Out, it has like little vibes of those movies. Those are the best. I had to actually look these up because I wanted to make sure. Like the dynamic is a little different, and they're not playing a game. This is like life or death kind of a thing. And then, just as a side note, a trivia thing that I found on IMDb that I thought I would share with everybody, that the character Bob, there's a scene where he's talking about microwave popcorn and how one time he popped a bag and there was only 4 unpopped kernels. Well, the brilliant marketing strategy of this movie is that Bob actually has an Instagram where he only posts pictures of how many unpopped kernels from the microwave popcorn are in his bowl. And I went right to it. I followed it. It's obviously old now because this was done actually during the early stages of the movie. He set this up, but it's just really funny. If I'm creative enough, I'll link his Instagram down in the description below with all my other links and stuff. But Bob was great. Uh, it's just a fun movie. It's a really interesting topic. It could be very controversial, but I think they handle it very well. Euthanasia is a hard topic to have a peaceful conversation about because there's obviously a lot of people that are pro or con of people euthanizing each other. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below. I definitely feel this was worth the $6.99 on Prime. If you can find it anywhere else, I would definitely watch it. It's really good. Very well done. I look forward to more stuff from Caitlin Cronenberg. I was very happy with her first outing, and she did great. So yeah, that's going to do it for this very long review of the 2024 film Humane. And yeah, go recycle, and don't look in direct sun or you'll burn your eyeballs.
Row 18, plot 20.